There's a loading screen playing, everybody. I don't know if anybody noticed when there's a loading screen playing. I'm little and tiny in the corner, and I gotta scratch my head a little bit and get ready for the show here. How them rosy cheeks, everybody out there? How you doing today? Let's get going on the show because it's Monday. Oh, Monday. Because it's Monday. Yeah. 9 people here today. Breaking records on a Monday, coming in with 9 folks. What's up, everybody? Good to see you. Thank you for coming out today. Very much appreciate you. Very much appreciate you. Let's check in with the live chat. Who was here a couple minutes early? Who was here a couple minutes early? Frank Dominguez, first to the chat today. Big D Smoke. Alyssa Bentley. Rombost says, well, hello there. And dropped a super chat of the Swedish Krones varietal, 19.17 Swedish Krones. Thank you very much, but brother, I appreciate it. As you guys know, he's tracking. I get 1 Swedish penny for every day that I stay sober, and I appreciate your support. I appreciate your super chats, and I appreciate you watching the show, man. Thank you. And it's wild to see somebody else keep track of how many days I've been sober. 1,917. We're closely approaching the 2,000 days, you know? It's not that far off. 2,000 days is not that far off, and feeling good. Gaining weight. Get my dad bod going. So that's got that thing happening for me, so that's pretty good. But, hey, getting back to working out. Eating my shakes, you guys. I don't know if you guys have... do you guys skip a meal and go with the, not a shake. Shake's not the right word. Smoothie. So I go with avocado, blueberry, raspberry, blackberry, like maybe a half of an apple, like 4 cups of spinach. And I think that's pretty much it. Like some water. It needs some water. And I grind that up, and I normally have that for like lunch or breakfast. One or the other. I wish I had more of a system and a schedule for my own thing, but, as you guys know out there, let me find my arrow here. Badow! I got that baby Peanut up there in the corner. She's here with us in the show, which is always nice. If I move her over there. I like to move her over there. Oh, we can make her bigger even. Yeah, the baby! She's much bigger than that now. That's when she was a little tiny micro baby. But anyhow, we keep the schedule high and tight for her, you know what I'm saying? We got to keep that schedule tight for the baby, and that means old dad's schedule gets thrown a little bit out of whack. So it's either a breakfast or a lunch that I do the smoothie action. I feel like it's good. It's like you can just hammer down a big old salad with a bunch of stuff, and it's got all the fiber in it, you know? Like I could sit around chewing on spinach and stuff, but come on now. Why do that when I could have technology do the chewing for me? You know what I'm saying? Yakka-da-ka-ka-ka-ka-psh. Rim shot, right? Oh, yeah. He's got jokes, kids. But thanks for everybody coming out. Thanks for the reminder. And what's today's show about? We'll get to that in just a second because I want to say hi to a couple more people. Candy Overhauls is here. Fisheye on Tanktics. I always laugh whenever I read that. I don't know why, but it makes me laugh. Goldie Freaks here. Tyler Bite, Michael Sarr, Ricardo Santiago, Simon Walsh, first time making the chat. Long time listener, first time chatter. Well, thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. John Gonzalez, I think I already said your name. The Fish Tank Barn is here. What is up? And then my chat just scrolled super fast. I don't know what happened there. That was weird. But, yeah, if I missed your name, it's not on purpose. We just got to move on in the show. So today I've been working on the 150 and 2 of the 120s and a couple other aquariums too. But you guys are going to see some stuff from the 150 gallon when we get to that. But I do have some super mega fan news to people that may or may not be a mega fan of yours truly, and maybe you want to meet me in person. Yes, I'm going to be doing some local meetup stuff at some point in time, but right now, let's talk to the international crowd or the Americans that want to make the trip or well, I'm in America, so if I talk about the international crowd, I guess that includes the world, right? So any Americans that want to also make the trip, or the international crowd, aka the rest of the world, which, hey, I'd like to meet everybody someday. Coming up in November is what is called the Vivarium. The Vivarium, I gotta make sure I get this right. Let me see if I can find. Where's my link? Where'd my link go? Hold on. Vivarium in the Netherlands. There it is. And let me make sure I get the right one. Here it is. Oh, no, I don't want to go to the Facebook thing. Stupid Facebook. There it is. There's the actual event. And that's also a Facebook event. Never mind. Let me see. Oh, man. Let me see if this is the right one. Anyhow, it's November 2nd and 3rd, and it is in the Netherlands. I found last year's page from somebody that was there. It is called Vivarium 2019. It's in Rosmalen, the Netherlands. So November 2nd and 3rd, I've gotten the okay to... Yeah, here it is. The shrimp contest will be... It's the Dutch shrimp contest. Here we go. Here's an actual page for it. Yeah, and I can copy this link and I can give it to you guys. So if it's something that you want to go to or not, you can check it out if you feel like it. If it's something that you feel like you want to do, if it's something that you're like, hey, I want to go to a convention, and this is the one that I'm choosing to go to this year. I know that there's going to be probably a lot of Americans that are kind of upset or whatever about the possibility of me going to an American convention. I don't have any American conventions booked. I honestly don't. So this is the one that I'm getting my plane tickets. I'm making arrangements. I have rooms set up and that kind of stuff. So that's where I'm going to be at November 2nd and 3rd at the Vivarium Convention in the Netherlands. I'm very excited to go. You guys know from the Patreon page, when I do the Patreon shows on Friday, Johan posts regularly on Fridays, and we do his Fish of the Week post on Patreon. He's somebody that not only patronizes, but he also puts up in the community page there. And so he's definitely going to be helping out quite a bit. So it'll be Johan and Joel, myself. We shall be in cahoots, rambling about in the Netherlands. So it should be pretty fun. I have spoken with some other, I don't know, what do you call them? Pseudo-famous people that are in Europe, and we'll be doing some filming with them. So stay tuned for that. I don't want to actually release right now and say like, oh, there's the thing I'm going to do, and then end up like make anybody feel bad because they're like, that thing didn't happen, you know. So, but needless to say, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to do some store tours. We're going to do some fish room tours. We'll also get some video from the convention itself. And so I really feel like it's a positive opportunity. It sounds like it's going to be a very enjoyable time. I've worked out to have a sitter here to take care of the baby while I'm out of town, all that kind of stuff, and I think it's going to work out quite well. You know, a lot of people have been asking me, especially recently, because Aquashella is coming up, Aquatic Experience is coming up, and I've not solidified anything to go to any of those, and I'm gonna be real honest with you guys. It's gonna be more affordable for me to go to the Netherlands. It's more affordable for me to go to the Netherlands than it is to go to Chicago. Is that weird? apparently that's just the way that the world works these days. I don't even know what to tell you. So I'm going the more affordable route and something that won't already have a ton of people filming at it and stuff. So as far as like Aquashella goes, like Coral 12G, like he helps throw that whole convention, so he'll be filming it. Corey from Aquarium Co-op will be there. He'll be filming it. Tazawa from Zenzo from Tazawa Tanks, he'll be there filming it. I think Jimmy will be there filming it. Like, there'll be lots of stuff for people like on YouTube to be able to check that kind of stuff out. So I feel like, you know, me throwing my hat in there and then being like, here's another video, like, not a big deal. But there's not really anybody covering vivarium. I've looked through YouTube and I found a couple of videos like from last year and stuff like that. So hopefully this will be kind of the first year where it gets a lot of good coverage, and you know, hopefully we'll be able to I'll be able to film as much stuff as I can. Terry's Tropical Tank says Cataclysm Catfish Convention for me. I would love to go to Cataclysm. I think Cataclysm is coming up like real soon, isn't it? Cataclysm. I know it's a weird catfish convention. Oh, there we go. Hey, well, that worked. September 13th, 14th, and 15th at the Crown Plaza. I feel like they're almost always at the Crown Plaza. I feel like almost like 90% of conventions I've ever been to have been at a Crown Plaza. I don't know why that is, but East Washington Avenue. Come on, guys. If you're going to make a giant post about it, if you say that it's at the Crown Plaza on East Washington Avenue, that doesn't really help for people out of town to know what exactly you're talking about. Madison area aquatic hobbyists. Okay, that does nothing. Oh, here we go. Let's see if we can get it. Come on now. That is the exact same post that I was at before. Catfishcataclysm.com. What do we got here? It's loading. 31 days and 15 hours. They have a countdown clock. East Madison, Wisconsin. That's where it is. So that's one I would love. I would really like to go to. How far is Madison to Madison, Wisconsin to Milwaukee? How far is Milwaukee to Madison? Let's see. 1 hour and 28 minutes. 80 miles. How many kilometers is that? I'm not sure. So 80 times 2. I don't know. Let's just round up and call it 200 kilometers. So that's not the easiest little trek. But I could hypothetically go out to Milwaukee at some point in time. One of my best good buds lives out there, but he's going to be visiting here at some point in time. So that'll be fairly soon. Maybe I could talk to him about that and be like, hey man, can I come to your house? Go to a catfish thing. But then again, I could probably just fly into Madison instead of Milwaukee. But I bet flights are probably more cheaper. More affordable to go into Milwaukee, I would guess, since it's a major hub. Let's zoom this out a little bit. I feel like I'm like way too close. I feel like I was like way too close to the camera. There. That feels better. So hour and a half at full speed. Let's see which. Alyssa is in the chat, says which I would go to, except I didn't plan on it and I don't know how to get fish home. Ooh, yeah, that's a good point. I do know that Corey and Jimmy drove the van out there, and they drove the van back, which that sounds intense, but it worked out for them. I don't know if you're flying. I guess you can't check anything into any like live fish or anything like that. You have to bring it on the plane. So, yeah, bring that in with you. Just bring it into the fuselage. I'm trying to think of the cabin. There we go. Nate Leaner says, It's not like Seattle traffic out there, so it's 80 miles. So 80 miles is pretty quick. Yeah, it might be an hour. I want to check with. I would want to check with my buddy first to make sure that he has a car, because I know that last time. I think last time that we had a discussion of whether or not he had a car, I think he had just sold his and was like regularly using public transportation for whatever reason. But so I'll check with him and see if he has a car. And that might be a possibility, because if I can go out there, like maybe he could just drive me out and back and be my own cab driver. I could tip him. So yeah, well, so we got to that, but I'm going to Vivarium in early November. So if you guys are excited for that, I'm excited for that too. Big D Smoke says, I really like Chicago, have family out there and everything, but Chicago or the Netherlands. Even if no Vivarium, that's a no-brainer. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think the reality is that, like, you know, I'm not that popular, realistically. Like, I'm just not. You know what I mean? Like, we're at 25. We're just shy of like 25,000 subscribers on this channel. So you got to think the 25,000, they're spread throughout the world. And it's not like I'm even bringing in new subscribers. I posted onto the Discord like what the subscriber count looks like. It goes like this. It's like it's like -10 one day, +8 the next day. Oh, for a net of -2. Like, yeah, so we're doing fine, and I'm not unhappy with that. But I think that the reality is that I go to conventions and there's, you know, 5 or 10, maybe 20 people there that really wanted to meet me, and may or may not be a deal breaker for them if I don't go. So I'm trying to utilize whatever resources I have to be able to bring better content, you know, and I just don't feel like I really bring anything to the table. Like let's say Jimmy goes to a convention and makes like a half an hour long video. Like, I can't even compete with that. So, and I don't think I bring anything of value if people were to have watched like both of our videos. It's like, yeah, you know, okay. So, you know, I feel like there is value where if I go out to the Netherlands and film some stuff for you guys, there's just not that many people like filming in the Netherlands. Also, on top of it, the Hague is there. I'm very interested in. There's a few towns that I really want to go to, which while I'm on the show right now, I'm having a total brain fart of which towns I want to go to. So I'm going to look that up real quick. I believe Einhorn is correct, but that does not feel right when I'm going to say it out loud. So let me, Eindhoven is one of the towns I want to go to, which is going to be a bit of a train ride or something like that. I want to go to Eindhoven, and I also want to go to Roosendaal to check out a couple of things. I'm not that interested in necessarily like what's going on in Amsterdam, because Amsterdam is mostly, I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of like a city, you know. I don't know. Not to like talk down about Amsterdam or anything. I just don't think there's that much there. But I'll be staying in Rotterdam, so Rotterdam is a town that I have definitely always wanted to go check out, and because it's close to where a lot of historical things have happened, and it's fairly interesting to me that even if like a lot of the I don't know, I guess if a lot of the like shrimp and fish and plants and that kind of stuff is sort of a bust, I feel like at the very least I'll be able to, you know, check out some of the historical sites like the World War II. There's like some real World War II museums and stuff like that there. So very interesting things that I could at the very least, you know, get to check out. So that would be cool. And, you know, looking forward to it. And I think also it's a really cool opportunity, because last time I was in Europe, we were at the convention that we were at was Interzoo, and I don't know, Interzoo is a gigantic convention. It was huge. Like, there's like, so if you think of a giant airplane hangar, right, full of booths and displays and people, bringing their products and all that kind of stuff. Like a giant airplane hangar, huge. And there was like 13 of those on this campus. 13 or 12. 12 or 13 of those. Huge. There's like 30,000 people there every day for the deal. It was very overwhelming and stuff like that, but the thing is that you had to have a vendor type pass, so it wasn't open to the public. So most everybody that was there on business, or they were selling something, or they were buying something, or they were somebody that normally buys stuff. You know what I mean? So it was really cool to be at Interzoo, and if I do go to Interzoo next year, which I would very much appreciate to go, because now I have an idea of what it's like and what I would go there to like film, things to experience, how to spend time there, like the Dennerleigh crowd, like all the Dennerleigh people. I would love to get, at the very least, like a quick interview with them, stuff like that. So it would be very, very interesting. Some people are mentioning Mark's Aquatics. That would be an awesome visit. There's a lot of people in the Netherlands and in Europe that I feel like I could definitely visit, and would definitely be worthwhile. Elflower 1 star says, my dream vacation is Hawaii. I've been to Hawaii quite a few times personally, and I highly recommend it. Definitely go. Go with one of two mindsets. Go with either mindset 1, you're just going to chill. Like, go there with the mindset that you're going to chill, or mindset 2, you're going to do every single crazy wild thing that you can think to do. Go with one of those two mindsets, because I feel like anywhere in the middle, if you're in Hawaii, is you've just sort of wasted your time. Oh my gosh, we got a new member during the show. Joshua Kelly became a new member. Nice. Thank you, brother. If you guys don't know, there's a join button. You guys can hit the join button, become a member on YouTube, and it does really help out. It's like $5 a month. It really helps out. And not only does it help with the YouTube algorithm nonsense, which is just kind of a catchphrase for like the YouTube computer programming, is essentially like it will either promote a channel or not promote a channel, dependent on how many members there are. And it definitely is, if you are a member of any channel, that is more contribution to a creator, a channel, whatever you want to call it, than you watching like nonstop all month. So it really is a thing that is extremely helpful. The most extremely helpful thing that you can do is like kick $1 a month to the person, to the creators that you most enjoy. Basically, the world is more and more turning into an a la carte sort of service. I know back in the dizzy, if you guys are old like me, you would know that NPR, National Public Radio, is kind of the perfect example of something that's sort of tried and true, as like if you become a member on YouTube, or if you go over to our Patreon page, which I just posted a link. Candy Overhauls just posted the membership link in the chat there. If you're somebody that wants to kick in and support something that you like, some kind of content that you like, $1, $5 a month, anything like that, it's wildly appreciated, and it helps keep us independent. The only sponsorship that we have here is the Aquarium Co-op. And one of the big reasons that the Aquarium Co-op is our sponsor is because they are number one in customer service, products, and just overall as a company. Even all the employees and everybody like that are all 5-star employees, awesome people. They really take care of their workers. They really take care of their customers and make sure that everything's right. And otherwise, I really wouldn't be associated with anything like that. I was talking last week that somebody was trying to get me to sell their socks. And you know what? If they were like the most brilliant fancy socks in the world, maybe I would go in for that. But I'm not a sock guy necessarily. You know me, I wear socks just like everybody else, but I'm not a sock salesman. I don't really know how to compare them. Like, I don't know. But one thing I do know about is aquarium stuff and companies that supply aquarium products, and those guys are top notch. And one of the interesting things is that they don't, Corey doesn't throw money out of his pocket to be like, hey, mention Aquarium Co-op on the show. They're an affiliate sponsor. So if you click through one of our affiliate links that takes you over to Aquarium Co-op and you buy stuff, essentially we get a percentage. So if you don't buy anything, cool. If you do buy something, hey, that's cool too. It's all good. But I want to give a big shout out to all the patronizers and members and stuff. You guys will notice that the members have a little emoji next to their name now. There is a new one for the 6-month members. RNH2O has it. The only person I see who has that is RNH2O. Alyssa Bentley does. Ooh. And that's those. Oh, ooh. Creedmoor Aquatics also. Let's see. The Fish Tank Barn. Nice. Those are people that have been supporting this channel as members for over 6 months. So, Ezio Augustus is asking, what do you think of Jeffrey Epstein's death? I don't think Jeffrey Epstein is dead. I think he probably was taken from the jail one way or another. I think he was just taken from there alive. I think they smuggled him out at some point in time, somehow, got him out of there, and that's what I think. And I think, there'll be an ongoing conspiracy theory for the next 20 years of like, did he die? But that's the reality. I do know that if you are in a Supermax prison and you're on suicide watch, you don't commit suicide, because I do know a lot of people that work in the crappy prisons here in Washington State. And in Washington State, if you are on suicide watch, there's actually somebody watching you on a monitor 24/7 from a control room. And I believe, now I might be wrong here, but I believe the maximum amount of monitors that they can watch is 4. So they can watch 4 cells at a time. So they have like 4 monitors set up, and you have to watch them and see what's going on. So it just seems completely out of this world to me that he managed that, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. But it does make a lot of sense that they would get him out of there, because he would, he's a guy that knows apparently a lot of stuff about a lot of people, and how are you going to get him to stop that? And I think realistically, if you follow the money is like, he's worth a ton of money, which most people don't necessarily recognize how much money that guy is worth. But that kind of money can get you out of jail. And if there's that many people counting on all of that money to get him out of jail, something's going to happen. And, but the reality is, that's just my thought. I don't have necessarily a lot of information or any of that kind of stuff, so it doesn't really matter. It's just my initial knee-jerk of like, what the F is going on here? This is weird, And that's kind of just sort of the way I think about it. But it doesn't really, my conjecture doesn't mean anything about any of that stuff. And I don't think any of that stuff is, honestly, all that important at this point in time. I think it's a huge distraction, and somebody that's my age or older will remind you guys that most of these stories that come out about this kind of nonsense is to distract the everyday average person from recognizing the legislation that's getting pushed through. I mean, honestly, that's what a lot of these stories are. And a lot of people would attribute it to it basically goes back to 1976, around there. I think, when did the news get when did the news get ratings? Nielsen. Let's check this out. Nielsen ratings were released first 1947. I think it was 1976. I would have to look this up a little bit further than what I can do live right now on the show. But either way, in the 70s, the news became, they started getting ratings for the news, right? So they did the ratings for the news, and then they found out that the news was super popular. So then the news became monetized. The news became monetized, and once the news became monetized, then it really started to what most of the politicians in the U.S. figured out is that if they release a big crazy story, everyone kind of looks that way for a while, right? And it's very easy for our government to pass legislation while everyone's over here going like, "What's going on?" And in my lifetime, a very specific example of that would be when Bill Clinton was in office. There was a lot of questions about what he was doing after hours, right? We'll just call it that because we don't need to talk about the specifics of what he was doing. It doesn't matter. But if you go back and look, and this also accounts for Reagan, this also accounts for both of the Bushes and stuff that were in office. Same deal there. All of a sudden, a whole bunch of legislation gets passed while those stories are going. And then it's like, oh, then everybody kind of comes back to normal. Oh, everybody calms down, and they're like, what are those guys doing? Oh, okay, they're still just doing the same thing that they were doing before. Okay, let's go back to work. We're super busy. We work 70 hours a week. We work 60 hours a week. Maybe you only work 40 hours a week, but you commute 20 hours a week. You also got to sleep in there, and maybe you got a baby. Next thing you know, you ain't got time for that. It's really one of those things. And Deborah Sanders says news is now entertainment. I would remind anybody out there that thinks that news is now entertainment, it has been that way for over 40 years. It has been that way for over 40 years. It has been big money. It has been big influence. And, you know, one of the things is, like, if you go back and look at some of the old, if you go back and look at how the, or a lot of old advertising and stuff, it's like, oh my God. So I think that's the whole reason that they're doing any of that stuff. That'd be the whole reason that they're doing it. Every time I look at a piece of legislation, I realize that they're carving out and taking away beneficial things and just implementing more negative things as far as I'm concerned. If you are wondering about that, just look into the F-35 airplane program. Just look into that. And tell me how much money that is. Anyhow, let's get back on to fish tank stuff. Boom! Shaka-laka boom. This is how the 150 gallon aquarium looks today. Having a great time messing around with this aquarium. It's coming fairly well. I got to be honest with you guys. I haven't been doing as much work into it as realistically needs to be done into my fish room and stuff like that. It is a bit of a mess out there. There's just things going on. As you guys know, I have been crazy busy, essentially working as much as I can to, as you guys know, I was working on building out a giant fish facility. Well, not fish facility, but plant facility for the aquarium co-op as we moved the whole entire warehouse up. I built out a lot of that stuff. I still got some work up there to do, but I'm getting back to having my regular schedule. You know, being able to work here a day in the office, work out in the field a couple days, work back in the fish room for a portion of a day, film, edit, blah, 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 do all the kind of crazy stuff I do. Still taking care of my baby. Still gotta take care of my baby. You know, so I gotta take care of my baby. It's what I gotta do. It's what I gotta do. So, staying busy, doing stuff, doing the best thing I can to, you know, get hired on to book enough jobs to do the things that I got to do, and fund the kind of stuff that we can. And part of that would be like going to the Vivarium. It's like an aquascaper convention is part of it. So it's going to be plants and hardscape and that kind of stuff. So I think it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be a pretty good overall I think it's going to be a pretty good overall investment, with, having worked a lot of extra shifts and stuff like that to be able to put into that, put that back in, and then hopefully bring that stuff out for the community. You know what I'm saying? So we'd be able to get that kind of stuff out for the community. Do I ever do Wallstad dirted tanks? I'm somebody that's been in Planet Aquariums for, I don't know, like 15 years now, something like that. And here's the deal. I've done a ton of dirted aquariums. There realistically is no reason, in my opinion. I don't know what that fade in was there. Hold on, let's go back here. Was that in the video? Why did it do that? Man, I edited this so weird. Why does it... Okay, well, I guess it fades out all weirdly. All right, well, either way. Sorry, I just noticed that the video is like doing this weird fade to white bizarro nonsense. I don't know why it was doing that, but anyhow. Yes, I have done a ton of... Wallstad method dirted aquariums. Yes, I've done a lot of those. I really don't think that there's a benefit to doing them when you bring in the conjunction of the technology. Like, it's one of the things that is very important to take into consideration. If you are going to do a dirted aquarium, you really need to eliminate a lot of the equipment. What is with this video today? Oh, what video am I playing? Am I playing the correct one? Nope. Let me see. That's why I'm not even playing the right video. Oh, silly me. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Okay. Let's add this video because I had the wrong video playing. No wonder. Let's move it down. Zoop. Aha. That's what happened. Okay. I was like, what is going on with that video? Let's make sure we get the right video. Hey, there we go, guys. Man, I was trying to figure out what was happening with that video, but there we go. This is actually today. Sorry about that. It looks very similar because it's not that far apart. It was only like a few days ago. But yeah, sorry about that, guys. I had a bit of a snafu there. I was operating with the wrong video on. Oh, that's why I labeled them. I labeled them both. I labeled them both episode 844. That's where things went wrong. Because today is episode 845. Out of how many videos do I have now? Let me see. Oh, I don't know if I can see that from here. I don't know if I can see that from here, guys. It's too far away. Let me see. I gotta go here, and then I gotta go. What? Wrong button. YouTube Studio. Oh man, Aquarium Co-op has a new video up in Dean's Fish Room. I gotta go check that out for sure. Where's the total video count thing? Where did that go? Oh, it's not giving me it. Nope, I have no idea how many it is now. I used to have a button. We have new analytics thing, and used to have a button that you could just look at, and you'd be like, oh, that's how many. Guess we can't do that anymore. All right. Well, there we go. Let's get all this back to normal. But what the heck was I talking about? Okay, well, we got the video figured out. We got things going on. Let's get back to normal. Oh, I was talking about a dirted aquarium. So once you start to add in the technology, you start to add in LED lights, you add in filters, you add in, fertilizers, water changes, heaters, all that kind of stuff. The Wallstad method was created, the follow through, especially if you read the book. If you read that book and you find out what's going on, you will realize that the plants in that aquarium are supposed to be the filtration, all that stuff is supposed to be handled by the plants. It's supposed to be diffused sunlight, right? It's supposed to have diffused sunlight hitting it, not a bunch of fancy LEDs or T5s or T8s or any of those kinds of lights. It's supposed to be just getting diffused daylight. It shouldn't be, you know, and the reality is that like once you start to add in all of the, technology and things, a dirted aquarium, there really is no reason to do it other than if you want to use that as your fertilizing source. And I would argue that it's sort of a, I don't know, irresponsible fertilizing source because you're just not sure how much you're getting, what's going on, how you're going to keep your tank balanced, how you're going to make sure that you have enough plants to be chewing up whatever organic potting soil that you use or whatever. It's just becomes quite difficult and it becomes frustrating to people. I think it's something that every planted tank enthusiast should do at some point in time, but they should go into it going like, I'm trying out something that is going to be frustrating and I'm going to do my best to deal with it and hopefully learn a lot from doing it that way, right? The main tank says Dean's water heater broke and it was a good one. Oh, all right. Well, I'll be checking that out later. I can't watch it now. It would be weird if I watched it now. Creed Moore says Corvus should do a 15-minute standalone video on his position on Wallstads to link to a quick rundown on how he would recommend doing one and then segue into why he doesn't. I might do one of those at some point in time. Right now I'm working on kind of some ambitious video projects. I consider them to be ambitious. Maybe they're not ambitious at all, but I consider them for me to be ambitious. They're over a much longer period of time. They're covering a lot more of a story and that kind of stuff, which is what I feel like I really need to improve on. So that's what I'm working on, and maybe I'll add that to the list of something that I should try to do. I should probably try to dig up some old photos of some dirted aquariums and stuff that I've done. So maybe I'll add that in. David Gilkinson saying, how do I get some of your trimmings for your new 120? It's so crazy to try and get trimmings out to anybody. I still have to send stuff to Preston and Shelby, and they've been super cool about it. And I should be having time real soon to be able to get that sent out to them. So it's not something I do. It's something I like to do just as a giveaway every once in a while. And I did one a while ago, and I still haven't made good on that. And personally, it does stress me out a little bit. But Shelby and Preston are both been real cool about it. And have been just like, nah, it's no big deal. We know we know you'll send it out. So, and I will. It's on my mind. Annalise says compact fluorescent lighting with Wallstad. You can use compact fluorescent, but even if you read the book, it's all about diffuse sunlight. That's what is supposed to be used in it. I believe she developed it in the 70s or early 80s is when she was doing it. So then it was intended to be like a nature style, natural aquarium. One of the interesting things is that, if you do the dirt in the aquarium like that, it eventually does get pretty reasonably good with its own CO2 production and stuff like that as organics break down. But I think personally, it's not a great place for people to be in, to be like, oh, I'm going to set up this aquarium and then I'm going to be able to be happy with it like 5 years from now or something like that. I feel like if you're happy over the 5-year period that you're working and messing around with your aquarium, I feel like that's much more beneficial because long projects are important in life, but I also do feel like, like this aquarium right here, I had this thing set up and it was growing plants in the first week that I set it up. Now it wasn't doing it like super well or anything necessarily. Obviously, it still took some time to get this thing going, but I've only lived in this house. We've lived in this house for 2 years and like 3 months. 2 years plus 3 months plus 4 months, something like that. I'm not sure. 3 months. Yeah, 3 months. And you can see like how mature this tank is, and it's all commercial substrate, rocks and driftwood and some injected CO2 and easy green and easy iron. That's basically all that I've ever done really that much into this aquarium. A lot of it has to do with propagating and trimming the plants, which is today's the title on today's video, is that if you're not propagating and trimming your plants and stuff like that, you're not going to be successful. You will have a period of success, and eventually you will have another period of success, like, far down the line. It's very easy to get, your plants are growing good, it's looking lush, and you're not going to trim because you're like, oh, I want to maintain this lushness and stuff. And the next thing you know, 3 weeks later, the tank is crashing and stuff because you've allowed it to grow too far, too big for its own britches, which is typically what happens in a dirted aquarium. It's an ebb and flow kind of situation. The ebb and flow actually happens in nature. That's the natural style for plants to be growing, is that they're seasonal. Like, they're not supposed to be stuck in this springtime. They're not supposed to be stuck in this springtime that we want our plants to be in, all year round. They're not supposed to be like that. So you need to be the person that's able to step in and keep the plants trimmed so that you can maintain essentially spring, is what you're trying to maintain. One of the best ways to do that is, you can see me actually trimming in the background right now. I'm actually trimming the stems that have gotten too long. They've overgrown. That's the Limnophylla aromatica that I'm trimming currently in the background. You can see me trimming those stems, pulling them out. You can also see me at certain points in time actually pulling out the root ball of stuff, because I'm going to take the tops of these this is pretty specific to stem plants, but I'm going to take the top of these stem plants and I'm going to plant them back in, where I've removed the root balls from the older plants. And that's one of the techniques that a lot of people don't necessarily talk about that often when they're talking about a planted tank that's a display tank, that's not necessarily just purely a natural tank, because you can do a natural tank that is going to go through its seasons and stuff. You can let your tank do that. That's more of a personal choice if you want to go for that. I like to go for my tanks to be nice and vibrant, fully growing all the time. It's much easier for me to manage plants that are growing actively, as opposed to a plant that is either slowing down, melting, and getting ready to regrow next year. It's much better for me to just maintain their optimal growth as what I would consider optimal for the aesthetic reason. I like my plants to be vibrant looking. I like them to be growing essentially as kind of rapidly and as healthily as they can, because it's easier for me to track. It's easier for me to keep a good watch on kind of what's going on with them. Something to equate that to would be like if you're I know a lot of people out there have lawns. A lot of people out there have a front yard with a lawn that is growing, and you go out there, and if you mow that thing every single week, you water it, you mow it, you water it, you mow it, more often than not, it's going to be healthy and it's going to look the way that you want it to be. That's kind of the same concept with a planted aquarium. The way that I run it is that I like to stay in the pocket, doing maintenance, doing plant trimming, replanting, unplanting, and replanting the tops and stuff like that, and promoting that positive growth that I'm going for, because it's much easier for me to remember how to fertilize, how to do my water changes, that kind of stuff, instead of going like, well, maybe I could wait a month before my water change because everything's kind of gone dormant. For some reason, the lights, you know what I'm saying? Like, why would the lighting schedule change to wintertime if I'm going to be maintaining the same amount of light? I want to keep maintaining that sort of springtime feel for my aquarium. So I try to convert it into words that people can kind of understand a little bit. Is like, oh, you're trying to maintain spring versus fall, right? You don't want all the leaves to fall off and that kind of stuff. And I think that's a good point. We have a $2 super chat from Josh Kelly also, which I forgot to say something about. So thank you. Zombie Drummer says all Wallstad tanks are dirted, but not all dirted tanks are Wallstad. Using LEDs means you have a dirted tank. That's a good point. It's a good point. I feel like Wallstad's Diana Wallstad is the inventor of that style as far as, I don't know. I don't think there's any value in even trying to argue it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I know some random person that something, you know, I feel like she's the one that invented it. She got the book out. She got the science. They did the testing. They did a lot of stuff behind it. So it seems positive to me that she's the one that did it. And so I just kind of stick with Wallstad method. I guess, you know, dirted was, you know, somebody invented dirted. And I'm not saying somebody. I know who the somebody is who coined that term. It doesn't. What I'm saying is that I don't think that it really applies to that much because I don't think there's much value behind it. I think the Wallstad method is kind of where you'd want to stick and where it works because she's somebody that's definitely been working on it. She's still alive. It's not like she's gone or anything like that. So she is putting out new stuff on a regular basis, new research, new things going on. So I would stick with her if you were really interested in kind of what was actually going on. Annalise wondering, what do you think of a combo substrate of Fluval Stratum, Eco Complete, and Fluorite Black Sand? I do that all the time. This tank right here has ADA, Fluval Stratum, and Fluorite Black Sand in it. So, you know, Stratum, Eco Complete, and Fluorite Black, you know, they have kind of slightly different benefits to them. It's not that far off. One of the bigger things is just how to deal with roots. You know, dealing with roots and stuff like that is dealing with roots is a big portion of how we have to deal with plants. Is like root health, how they're rooting. Are they able to stay in? Are they able to get nutrients via their roots? Yes, plants can take in nutrients in other ways, but it is not the best way. That's not their favorite way of going about it. And also, when you allow them to get too tall and long, they have to adapt to these different ways of taking in nutrients because the travel is too far for nutrients to go from the roots all the way up like 36 inches away to get to the top leaves up there while it reproduces. So that's why you end up with aerial roots coming off of plants. That's why you'll notice like a big drop in the water column fertilization and stuff like that once your plants get all huge and bushy and grown up all over the place. So that's something that you'd want to stick with. Wes Barshinger, you know, mad respect on the $22.22 super chat. That's a monster super chat, guys. And, you know, some people would say, hey, don't let a super chat derail the show, but this is pretty important. And, hey, man, mad respect for contributing to the show, so we might as well talk about this for a minute because I think it's important that people hear about it too. Wes was wondering, have you heard about the blue-green algae in our ponds that is poisonous to dogs? Yes, I have heard about that. I've definitely read, I've seen an influx in articles. We talked about that on the Discord. If you guys don't know what the Discord is, if you are on Patreon, or you are a member on YouTube, you can get the link to get linked up to going onto the Patreon. The Patreon is a live chat where you can like post pictures, you can post links, you know, article links, stuff like that. We have a bunch of channels there where you're able to kind of type in and talk to each other and stuff like that. You can do voice to chat over it. There are a few other things that there are a few other aspects to it that eventually, if it grows further and further, there's some additional things that we can do. But it's like the live chat here, but with more and better functions. It's much more functional than the live chat here on YouTube, but it's a great spot. And I think we're approaching 100 people on there. So if you join the Discord, you'll actually get your name will actually be in a specific color for your tier now, for whatever tier you join on the Discord. You'll basically get props for being on Patreon on the Discord. So hopefully that makes sense. Might be confusing to some people out there, but I try to do my best. But we were talking about it on there and discussing that. And one of the big takeaways that I want to remind people that kind of was something that had definitely popped up and come up and we talked about. This has been coming up my entire life. This has been popping up. Blue-green algae is, a lot of blue-green algae is cyanobacteria, and it is detrimental and poisonous to a lot of farm animals. We always hear this. It's one of the reasons that, Horses need good running fresh water without cyanobacteria in it. Same with cows. Pigs, not so much. Pigs don't care, apparently. From the whole of my understanding, it doesn't affect pigs. But a lot of farm animals are affected by this, and they need to make sure that they have good, clean running water. And right now, with the temperatures so high, we're seeing a lot of cyanobacteria blooms, aka blue-green algae, showing up in a lot of lakes, ponds, mainly any kind of small bodies of water that are just kind of hanging around. And we're definitely seeing this in the United States. Now, dogs typically won't drink that water, although there have been some reports of dogs actually drinking that water. One of the biggest things is that when they go swimming, anybody that knows that's had a dog, you take your dog swimming in the ocean, they swallow a bunch of seawater, right? And it is like diarrhea town for the dogs. Now, swallowing a bunch of seawater is not great for them either, but typically it's just kind of a bout with the old diarrhea, and then they sort of move on, and they can normally get past it, and it's not really that detrimental. But cyanobacteria, they're swallowing a lot of that water when they're swimming around, and that is normally how that happens. Now, as I said, there have been some reports of people's dogs drinking that water. Dogs are normally pretty smart to, it doesn't seem like to you and I that they're pretty smart about what they're going to drink and what they're not going to drink, but that's, it's a part of their reality is that, especially if they're swimming in there, it's sort of unintentional that they're drinking a bunch of that stuff. So if you do see like that scummy green algae and stuff like that on top of a body of water, just play on the safe side. Keep your animal out of there, because the last thing you want is a sick dog, period, right, at all. But especially if it's something that's avoidable as the owner. I mean, I don't think there's anything more depressing than, you could have avoided it as the dog owner, and maybe you didn't, and you didn't take it seriously, but it is kind of a drag. But yeah, definitely remind everybody out there, the summers are getting hotter. Those of you on Facebook saw me post one of the salmon runs in Alaska completely dead before they could even spawn. Alaska just got done having one of the hottest months on record that they have ever had. It might even be the hottest that they've ever had, period. I don't know. I haven't been alive for billions of years, so I can't verify that. But and I would have to pull the article up to 100% verify. But it was one of the hottest months they've ever had. There's no sea ice up there right now. All of the sea ice has melted away, which is very odd. And this is one of the earliest times that has ever happened, and it's becoming consistent. So one of the downsides is that salmon runs come and they enter the water. Now, us as fish keepers, we know if you were to go, for instance, buy a bunch of fish at the fish store and bring it home to an aquarium that either was minimally cycled or didn't have any cycle at all, like it hadn't been cycled, hadn't followed through on the nitrogen cycle to figure out what's going on, that's basically what happens to those rivers. They don't have a lot of fish in them, and then all of a sudden one day, 100,000 million fish all of a sudden swimming up the river upstream. And with the lower levels and the higher temperature, we know as fish keepers, because we've been dealing with this for every summer, right, in our aquariums, is that we generally maintain the same water volume, but with that increased temperature, we lose oxygen saturation, right? What happens when there's less oxygen in the water? Fish become more wasteful, so they start to drop more ammonia and things like that into the water because they're not processing properly. And what's the word that I'm looking for here? Uric acid and stuff like that, and lactic acid and things start to get dumped into the water. Now you get that increased ammonia, less oxygen, higher temperature. Boom. Now the fish can't even swim upstream anymore, and it turns into a cascading effect, and that whole entire salmon run is dead. Like, it's not as though we don't understand the process. We do understand the process. You and I, you watching the show and me talking about the show, we understand the process that these increased temperatures are dramatically decreasing the ability for a lot of our natural resources, and one of them being the Alaskan salmon runs, which are vitally important to the people that live in Alaska. Not only live in Alaska, but maybe you're somebody that is, maybe you're one of those people that's all about business, right? Maybe you're one of those people that's like, all businesses should pay no taxes ever and should just be allowed to do whatever they want. Even if you're one of those people, all the fish are dead. So there's not even business for anybody to, catch any fish, do anything with any fish for their business. A lot of people losing their businesses off that kind of stuff. And, maybe it's a small portion of the people that are affected, but it's going to be, we're running into problems. We're running into more and more problems. And that's kind of the thing that's been my issue of late, and hopefully trying to educate some people with, planet aquariums and learning the ecosystems and learning, that some plants are delicate, some plants aren't delicate. The things that we can go as we move forward to try and fix some of those things. The Fish Tank Barn says, as Corey would say, they just need an air stone. There's no air stone that could do that, because that water is already being completely agitated over a rock bed, completely out in the air. It's being as agitated as it could possibly be, and there's no air stone that's going to solve that. So, I can really only think that the thing that we could do is possibly, increase the water volume there somehow. I don't know, dig the channel out so that it holds more water. I don't know. I don't know what to do. But I do know that we're going to keep encountering a lot of these problems, and that's just one of the reasons is that I don't know what the solution is, right? I'll fully admit I don't have a clue what the solution is. That's why I try to just educate and get people more in touch with some of the agricultural side and the ecology side of things that can or can't be done at a personal level, right? I'm not expecting one person to go out there and solve all of the world's problems as far as the biosphere of the planet. Like, I don't think one person's going to go out there and be able to solve it with some kind of magical thing. But if we do have more people that are thinking about how things can grow and how things are going to go, we're going to have more people contributing to some kind of solution and coming to more and more varied solutions to try and keep things going. Because I don't claim to be the guy who knows all the answers to everything that could ever come. But I feel like more people thinking about the problem and coming up with some solutions could all contribute to come up with an actual solution that would actually work. So, it's just that kind of stuff to me is just, it's rough, man. It's rough for me to deal with, watching that. It's rough for me to deal with, yeah, I don't know. It's rough for me to deal with that kind of stuff. William says people and businesses can find other solutions. Predator animals living on those salmon have bigger problems. That often means problem for us humans too. Yes. I mean, people and businesses can find other solutions. That's true. It's one of those things that if there's no food, none of us make it. We all have a need, and the need is to be able to eat food and have nutrition to be able to survive. That's a common thread that everyone has. Being able to breathe air, that's a common thread that everyone has. There's no person out there that doesn't need air, right? Doesn't need to breathe. There's no one that's evolved past having to breathe, right? So, there's a lot of commonalities that I think we should definitely be working on as a whole, and it's also one of the reasons that I do this. It's one of the reasons I do the live show. It's why I don't shy away from talking about some political topics. I I do try to talk about certain things as non-inflammatory as I can, right? Like some stuff, but that's why, like, some people watch this show and they're like, I wanted you to talk specifically about boron for an hour and a half because that's the one thing that I want to know about, right? And I get it. Everybody wants a concierge service to answer the questions and stuff like that you need to know right away. And that's one of the reasons why we have the Patreon. That's one of the reasons that we have the Discord chat. That's one of the reasons that we have the community tab. That's why I have a website. That's why I'm on Facebook, right? I kind of do this show because the show is sort of free form for me to be able to think about thoughts, kind of have a back and forth with you guys, and also try to address a specific thing in a title. Sometimes I get completely off and I don't ever really hit that thing. But I would encourage anybody to become a Patreonizer. Like, go over to the Patreon. You could be like $1 a month, like James Neesham just did during the show. You can pop on there. You can always post your questions. There are a bunch of cool people on there, like from Candy Overhauls to to like Rob the Butcher. I don't want to miss anybody. I'm trying to recall and operate all the buttons over here. Like Squee Monkey, like Jim Smith, like Kelly is on there, Pugman's on there, Creedmoor Aquatics, Bentley Pascal. The list goes on and on until you get to like 85 people, 84 people, 85 people. We're getting close to 100, but that's kind of the whole thing. It's like trying to build a community that can answer questions for people right away. But that's why sometimes I pop on here and I'm talking about politics or this or that or the other thing, is because it's kind of a free-form show, and it does to have that hour and a half long amount of time to kind of sort through and talk about things. When I make an edited video, it's much shorter. Let's see. Let me read some of the chat right here. What does shedding that much weight do to a large landmass? Confused. Alyssa Bentley says, I want to know what happens to the Antarctica if the ice melts off of it. Well, nothing will happen to the landmass of Antarctica. The land is attached to the ball that is the Earth. One of the big problems that we're going to have is it's not necessarily the rising sea level. I was actually reading one of the National Oceanographic Association of America. I think that's what NOAA stands for. Let me see. I want to double check. NOAA. National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. Well, I was completely wrong. So, correcting myself. So, yes, I was wrong, and the internet was right. So, it's Atmospheric Administration. I always think it's like the National Oceanographic Administration of America, but that's not right. It's Atmospheric Administration of America, but we don't put the of America in the name. Okay, got it. All right. Well, I was ish. I have multiple people that in my family that work there, so for many, many years. Anyhow, I was actually reading one of the reports of the critical melt off of Greenland this last week. One of the problems with the ice melting is that, yes, the ocean levels rise, but the ice melting changes the salinity in the ocean eventually. Obviously, it takes a ton. It takes a ton. It's way more than a ton. I forget how many tons. It was like 40 billion tons of ice melted in July. Or maybe it's 40 million tons. 40 million tons or 40 billion tons. Either way, a ton. And it actually did raise the level of the ocean. But one of the biggest problems is when that water melts, it will evaporate out of the ocean. And we end up having more water in our atmosphere, which makes things totally crazy weather-wise. And if people aren't concerned about the weather that we're having, like this last weekend would be a perfect indication of a concern about how some of the weather is impacting and the ability that it has to impact us. Is this last weekend? So this last weekend was August, right? August weather in Washington is sunny. It's like the only month out of the year that it's going to be sunny. It's going to be hot. Um, it's going to be full on summertime. And you wake up Saturday morning to torrential downpour, right? Like torrential downpour. It was pouring down rain like crazy. Crazy coming down. Okay. Rained all day, rained all night. Okay, yeah, sometimes it rains around here. But the interesting thing is that we had thunder and lightning storms all Friday night, all Saturday night, into Sunday morning, which is not typical for Western Washington. We do get thunder and lightning sometimes, but it's normally not that much. But we are seeing more and more weather changes just here in Western Washington over the last 100 years. But over the last 15 years, it's the 100 years was like, yeah, and then it's doing this crazy stuff over the last 15, 20 years. So, it's that kind of stuff where we have that increased amount of moisture within the atmosphere that is starting to create wilder weather events. Now, that's going to be the big problem. It's not necessarily that people won't make it, people won't, like a lot of people will survive. The downside is how many people don't make it because of those things that are going on, right? Like, that's the problem. It's not necessarily that humanity is going to get wiped out. I really don't think it's that extreme, because just the amount of humans that are on this planet, right? There's 8 billion people on the planet, that I feel like somebody's going to figure it out and they're going to survive. But it's just all the people that are lost in the wake. That should at very least be motivating to most people, right? And, I don't know. I'm just seeing it more and more here, where it's like we have this crazy weather. I know that I saw Vicky showed me a picture yesterday. Candy overalls had over, they were bigger than golf balls, like a golf ball size hail. Just, what was that? Like 2 days ago or something like that. Whew. The Fish Tank Barn says it seems like that the seasons have delayed a month or two in Michigan. Yeah, that's crazy. Jim Smith says, I'd love to hear your thoughts with a $5 super chat. Jim Smith, what's up, buddy? He's on the Discord. He went and upped his Patreon so he could change his color on Discord. So I have to say thanks, Jim, like in person and not just typing it out. But thank you for your support, brother. I appreciate it. And it's lovely to have you on the Discord and being a part of the squad. The fam squad, fam squad, army, squad fam. Squad up. Anyhow, Jim, $5 super chat says, I'd love to hear your thoughts on environmental impacts of our hobby and how we could/should best mitigate them. I feel personally that, it's difficult in other countries, right? Because other countries have different laws, right? Other countries have different laws. Other countries have different needs. Like the Bucafe Alondra has been a big thing. Like people have been yelling about how that's being harvested, and I understand, and I get it. I really do. It's very difficult for somebody like me to, essentially instigate a fight with other cultures and countries and stuff like that, because, me being an American, I'm point the finger at us first before I point it at someone else. So, I don't think that everything should be taken from the environment. Like, I really don't. But I don't really know how to regulate that in other countries. I do know how to deal with some of the regulations that are going on here in this country. And here's an example that has recently been going on, and it's been a raging debate, and people have been losing their minds about it on one end and the other. The yellow tang is a perfect example of the United States, because most yellow tangs, the fish, are harvested in Hawaii. Now, recently, they either were trying to pass legislation or legislation passed, and, hobbyists are trying to block the legislation to limit the amount of fish that are being harvested for the hobby. So these fish are, these fish aren't really being eaten. It's not like somebody's eating them. I don't even think you can eat yellow tang necessarily, but it's not really the issue. It's not really fishermen that are fishing for eating. They're fishing to live capture and resale the live fish. Now, when last time I was talking to Heiko Blair, he has been like kind of arguing this off and on quite a bit, and he had some really good points to bring to the table. And the biggest point to me that stood out, I will talk to you guys about, was he mentioned these guys fundraised over like 150 grand to hire lawyers to fight that law in court. Whether they thought it was a good law or not, they were going to fight it in court just on the basis that they didn't want any law to exist, which is a problem, you guys. I mean, that realistically is a problem. There should be something in place. Do you catch 1,000 fish a day and that's fine? Well, what about the next guy who wants to catch 1,000 fish, and the other guy who's going to catch 1,000 fish, and the other guy's going to catch 1,000 fish, and the other guy's going to catch 1,000 fish, and then we walk down one day and go like, "There's no more fish here." Well, is anybody breeding and propagating these? No, we just sold them all. Oh gosh. So, Heiko, we were talking about that, and he was like, "Well, maybe you want to hire some lawyers. Okay, let's say you raised 150 grand. Okay, take 50 grand and hire some lawyers and see if you can't kind of, help change the wording, maybe get the word out, whatever you got to do because you disagree with the law. Why not take 100 grand and start breeding some of the yellow tangs in captivity, right? Aquacultured fish are the best in our hobby, whether it's in a saltwater aquarium, whether it is in a brackish aquarium, whether it's in a freshwater aquarium, or whatever other kinds of aquariums there are. Maybe it's a vivarium, maybe it's a paludarium, maybe it's whatever it is. Aquacultured stuff, whether it's plants, whether it's fish, whether it's shrimp, whether it's snails, whether it's amphibians, whether it's snakes, whether it's whatever, the best ones to have are the ones that have been bred by humans for humans to take care of. You get a wild yellow tang, it's probably going to starve in your aquarium. You can feed it live food. You can make sure that you think your water is perfect, but it is not as good as the ocean. And these things should be aquacultured. So I think that the best thing that we could do for the environment, like 100% as fish keepers, as hobbyists, is encourage good legislation to make sure that maybe we're not even restricting the harvesting, but we're at least documenting the harvesting, right? Like maybe you could catch 1,000 fish, but other people need to know about it, right? Like other people need to know this is what's happening, this is what's going on, and we could all at least come up with some kind of plan to continue moving forward. Like, oh yeah, you could harvest 1,000, but you need to get 100 of them to this place where they're breeding them, right? I don't know, just spitballing with that kind of stuff, but we should be encouraging good legislation to make sure that things are happening the way that we want them to happen, right? As we move forward, there's 7-8 billion people on the planet. There's no point in anybody saying you're not a part of the world community at this point. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous for any person to stand around out there yelling about how they're independent, they picked themselves up by their bootstraps, they did this, they did that, and they did it all by themselves. It's like, oh, you went to college because you have a college degree? Did you build the college from scratch? Did you somehow teach all of the teachers, the professors, everybody there? Like, no, there's nobody in this world that's doing it by themselves. It's just not accurate. It's not an accurate depiction. So anybody out there that's saying that and acting like that is being disingenuous. We are all a part of the same world. We're all here, and we all want to continue the benefit that's going on. And you know what? There are some outliers out there that don't want the world to benefit. I don't know who those people are. They sound like crazy people to me, but they seem to have existed over history, and they seem to kind of exist now, sprinkled all around the planet. I get it. Okay. Let's say there's 85% of us that want to keep the world going in a positive direction. If 85% of us are going in a positive direction, it will just continue to go in a positive direction. So let's say you're somebody like me that's got a few fish tanks out in his garage. You're growing stuff out there. What are you doing? You're growing plants. You're breeding shrimp. You're taking aquacultured fish, just like that little Shadodeni puffer that's out there that was born, born and raised in the United States, brought up here by Preston himself. And we're doing the best to kind of spread around a fish that is in an incredibly endangered environment right now, which is the Shadodeni puffer. It's in the Congo. The Congo is a disaster right now, guys. It's in civil war. There's all sorts of mining and polluting and things that are going on there. And maybe this is just kind of my little piece of the puzzle to be able to like, oh, I got the Shadodeni puffer from going extinct, right? I don't know. And is it the right way to go? I don't know. But I'm aquaculturing plants. I'm aquaculturing shrimp. Some of my snails aren't necessarily living that long of a life because I feed a lot of them to my puffer. But I'm aquaculturing this stuff, and oftentimes I give it away. I don't really sell plants anymore or anything like that because I am sort of more in a position where it's like I don't need to necessarily like sell that to get gas money or whatever. So I feel like that's the biggest thing that we could all be doing. And at least, like if I'm growing Ludwigia, let's say Alyssa is growing Pogostemon and making sure that that's not going out of extinct. Or Big D Smoke is growing some Cryptocorynes, and he's keeping some other Cryptocorynes that are going on. And if all of us are all kind of maintaining and continuing to kind of move forward and learning about stuff and spreading the information and spreading some of the knowledge and things that we've learned, right, then I think that's ultimately going to come out to a positive result, And I feel like I've gone totally ranty. I've gone complete rant mode over here. And I feel like I'm going to get off track and start screaming at the walls or something. So let's backtrack. Let's calm down here for a second. Phil Emerson just showed up. What's up? Fish Tank Barn says also the Hawaii fishery is one of the best managed in the world, but they still shut it down. Talked about this Saturday night with Matt Peterson, the editor of Amazonas and Coral. Joel, follow Red Talbot. The marine fish trade is a small number compared to the food fishery. They're fishing for Achilles tang, though. Yeah, I mean, okay. Let me kind of pull it back here and answer the Fish Tank Barn a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, the whole entire fishery of salmon is, for this year, that whole entire, all those fish up that salmon fishery died. That means the 7 or 8 years from now when they are supposed to return, there will be no salmon. Unless we come back and seed those salmon somehow in there to return the 7 years later, right? I believe they're on a 7 or an 8 year cycle. I'm not 100% just off the top of my head. Now, I'm not the person that figured that out. I'm not even the fisherman that figured that out. You know what I'm saying? Scientists looked into it. People have done research. People have been accumulating knowledge, and people that have been working within that that environment and that field, and making accurate observations as to what are going on are the people that figured that out. It's not just this year's salmon that are gone. The salmon are cyclical. They come back. They breed once. When they, those eggs are there. They're fertilized. When they come up, they have to go out to the ocean. They go out to the ocean to mature. It's many seasons before they even come back. And a lot of people just thought that the salmon that came back next year were the salmon that were there the year before. Turns out that's not the case. And so if some people are making a fishery decision based on the science of the things that are going on the accumulated data from people that are collecting and accumulating that data to come up to a point, then I'm happy about it. If people are butthurt because they're not able to get the fish for their aquarium because a fishery is being regulated for a valid reason, then I'm like, if people are sad because they can't have a fish for their aquarium, okay, well, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Like, that sucks. It sucks that you're sad, but, you know, a perfect example of, what was I talking about? So that's salmon and whatnot. I don't know. Another example up here in the Pacific Northwest would be crab season. Crab season and the crab fishery. When the crab fisheries got regulated to a certain amount of poundage, I will tell you that there was commercials on TV, there was commercials in the newspaper, there was, constantly people talking about how the government is trying to screw us over. We're going to lose our crab fishery. We're going to lose this. We're going to lose that. The government overreach. And it's really not even government is putting it into place. Government does the enforcement to make sure that the regulation is followed. The regulation is proposed by scientists and marine biologists that have been working really hard, generally speaking, to come up with an actual fishery number that works, that is sustainable. And when it's followed, the funny thing is, guess what? Here we are 20 years later. The crab fishery is not gone. As a matter of fact, the crab fishery is more stable than it has ever been. People have they can rely on an income. They can have at least a base knowledge that they're going to be able to, fish enough crab this year, and the crab will actually be there. I can't tell you how many guys were up in arms screaming and yelling about the crab. Because I am from an area where the crab fishermen are normally at when they're not on their boat. And, they screamed and cried and yelled and yelled and yelled, and they didn't have any facts. They just were yelling about the fact that they wanted to be able to go catch as much crab as they could, because the crab fishing season used to be a derby. So what they would do is they would all sit there on their radios. They would get in their boats, get everything loaded up. They would sit there on their radio and wait until the fishery was open. And then they would catch crab, 24 hours a day, nonstop. Boats would sink, people would die, limbs would be lost, all sorts of craziness. Those boats would sink constantly and people would die. And so it brought more attention to them. Eventually, a lot more scientists were able to work up there because there was more attention on it. Scientists started to look into it. Next thing you know, oh, wait, we're fishing the crab into non-existent. And, when the derby was going on, it turns out it was the human life that was affected by it that was bringing the, that was what was able to bring in the scientists to be able to kind of look into it. Fish Tank Barn says, I'm not butthurt. I wasn't talking to you specifically, Mike. There are over 100 people watching right now, and I wasn't speaking specifically to you, Mike, so I wasn't trying to say that you were butthurt. But his response is that problem is that scientific facts won out for years. The problem that they got around it with a court case was able to shut the fishery down that way. Yeah, man. I don't know. I could probably look into the yellow tang more, and maybe I will. To be brutally honest, the answer is to aquaculture. And that's just the reality. Like, I understand that, like, fisheries get endangered, fisheries have problems and stuff like that. And I'm just trying to not be offending being directly offensive to Mike, because I really don't want to be offensive to Mike. Ultimately, the answer isn't this specific instance. Ultimately, the answer is aquaculturing fish, aquaculturing plants, aquaculturing shrimp. And if I just said that right out the gate, it doesn't really sound like I'm really having any kind of conversation. But, to try and stay on a conversational part, trying to use a specific instance of the yellow tang in Hawaii. And, the Hawaiian fisheries are a pretty multifaceted problem, especially because of the native culture that is there that they have to deal with. Well, and it's not that they have to deal with, that they are a part of. So natives of Hawaii, they are there. It's like another country, but it's part of America. And there are a lot of different things going on in Hawaii. And if you have to close the fishery down because it's the best thing to do, then so be it. There's tons of fish in the hobby that people could be breeding and stuff like that, but I don't see a lot of people, breeding saltwater fish and stuff like that. So the real answer is just people need to aquaculture fish, plants, that kind of stuff. We don't really need to strip the whole environment of the entirety of one thing to be able to sell it all off until we run out of the natural environment. A perfect example with plants is if you were to bring in, let's say you brought in 50 cultures of a specific plant, you tissue cultured it, you started to propagate each genetic varietal that you had gotten. So let's say you tissue cultured 30 of them, and 20 of them you tried to grow in, 10 submerged into an aquarium and 10 immersed in an aquarium. You would have some kind of success. You could cross most of those plants with tissue culturing and whatnot, and get a positive result. So, going out into the forest with a bulldozer and bulldozing everything that's there into the back of a truck and then shipping it to a wholesaler to wholesale all those plants off, it's a problem. Randall Bowman with a $5 super chat. Thank you very much. 504T Rel with a $5 super chat. This will be the last of the day because I got to get going for the rest of my day. I got to make some dinner, and I got to take care of the baby because the sitter is going to leave pretty soon. 100-gallon tank overflow box with a 40-gallon sump, heavily planted, 1-inch dirt, a bag of Eco-Complete, and a cap of small black pea gravel. Any suggestions? So 100-gallon tank with overflow box and a 40-gallon sump. Cool. Heavily planted with 1 inch of dirt, a bag of Eco-Complete, and a cap of pea gravel. Any suggestions? I am not sure what suggestions you're looking for. You're asking where to buy plants in bulk. Well, I think realistically, like if you're in the U.S., I would go to Aquarium Co-op, mainly because, they're an affiliate sponsor and they have quality plants and they're pretty dope and I do work there sometimes. So, full disclosure. But you're going to definitely need a lot of stem plants and stuff like that. So, kind of the sky's the limit. Any kind of like pogostemon, water sprite, any of that kind of stuff that is going to be extremely fast growing is going to be what you want for that aquarium. If you put all that dirt in there, if you put all that dirt in there, you're going to need something to be chewing up those nutrients pretty quickly. So I would most likely find some water sprite that's going to grow quickly. Pogostemon, Rotalas will be pretty cool. I would definitely get some water lettuce or something like that, some good floating plants that are going to kind of churn up and kind of cover up the light as things get really, you're going to be having to do a ton of water changes and that kind of stuff in that aquarium with, a lot of nutrient and then water change to kind of drop it down and then a lot of nutrient again. And some floating plants like duckweed or water lettuce or anything like that is going to really help out, mitigate that quite a bit. But from your setup, it doesn't seem like you're really hamstrung by that much, because you should be able to grow most things in there. My recommendation would be to make sure that you have some really solid controllable lighting. I currently, in this aquarium right here, I'm using the Fluval 3.0. There are a lot of other varietals out there, like the Stingrays work pretty well. The Planet Plus, ADA has some really cool plants, but they're planted lights, but they're $1 billion. Let me think here. Phoenix has kind of the cheaper ones that I kind of recommend from time to time. Let's see. What's the word I'm looking for here? What are those guys called? Kessel has some lights, but they're $1 billion too. So I would definitely get some good lights in there. Make sure that thing is fully cycled and keep rocking and rolling from there. Basically, stem plants in the back, smaller plants in the front. Don't bother with Anubias in a plant in a dirted tank. It's not, in my opinion, it's not the greatest plant. It doesn't really perform all that well in there. So skip the Anubias and any of the hard leaf plants. You're going to need, for sure, fast-growing plants. And one of the cool things is Cryptocorini will grow super fast in that aquarium. So that's probably a helpful thing. Yeah. Hopefully I answered your question. Like, where to get bulk plants, I don't know an exact answer for. I don't have an exact answer for, like, where to get bulk plants, unless you go to like a wholesaler or something like that. But one of the cool things is that I know, like, I mentioned Aquarium Co-op because, and I definitely have mentioned this before, I would certainly be of mind that, 2 pots pretty much of any plant is definitely going to propagate, grow. Don't buy too much, I guess would be the point. Buy some fast growers that can kind of eat up your extra nutrient while you're establishing the plants that you really want in there. And that should work out pretty well. And then just keep rocking and rolling. You got some good lights, throw some CO2 in there and go bonkers. And then do what I'm doing in the video back there. All right, big thanks to some brand new patronizers today. We've got James and Dan. We'll just call him Dan Jr. I try not to put people's last names out there if I don't know it's like your handle or anything. As I mentioned, Jim Smith upped his pledge. Thank you very much. Over the weekend, patronizer Cowdo Punk upped their pledge also. It's kind of one of the really cool things about Patreon is, like, if you're like, hey, I want to go up to $10, you can edit your pledge. Or maybe you're at $10 and you want to go down to $1 because you're like, man, this guy is the worst. I want to lower how much I'm pledging. Or maybe you're just on tough times and need $10. You can always turn it off, turn it back on, any of that kind of stuff. Raise it, lower it, put in pennies, whatever you want to do. So I think $1 is a minimum that you have to do, because I don't think it'll run your card for less than a minimum or whatever. And special thanks to Joshua Kelly for becoming a member on YouTube today. Randall Bowman, 504T Rel. Where was the other one? Jim Smith was a super chat today, and I lost my control panel, so I gotta find that. There it is. All right, let me just go through these super chats here real quick. Rombust, Joshua Kelly, Wes Barshinger with a big old $22 super chat. Thanks, man. Jim Smith with a $5, 504T Rel $5, and Randall Bowman with the $5 super chat. Thanks, guys. It all goes back into being able to, bring you guys more content. If I got to travel, if I got to do this, editing time behind the chair here. A lot of cool stuff going on in the Discord. So if you do sign up for either your membership on, if you do find up your membership on, if you do end up finding your membership on here, go into the community tab. That's what I was trying to talk about. If you are a member on YouTube, go to the community tab, and your access to the Discord chat is in there. You just have to scroll through and go find it. It's on there. So if you are a member on YouTube, you can also get onto the Discord. You don't necessarily have to be on the Patreon. You can do it with both. Fish Tank Barn says, $5 super chat. Thanks for the stream, man. Thanks for the conversation. Yeah, I mean, we can get more in depth. with the specific topic of that, I was basically using it as an example to just talk about aquaculture, and not necessarily the specific ins and outs of the court case and whatnot, because I am not privy to those, and it doesn't matter to me anyhow, because I think it's a huge waste of time to be fighting, stopping fishing or slowing fishing, because I think it's beneficial to our environment to, slow it down. Slow it down. Okay, so hopefully everybody has a fantastic week. I'll be back on Friday. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. If you are on here, hit the like button. Hit the stupid thumbs up so we can let YouTube know that you did like it, and then maybe someone else will be able to watch it. I do have some edited videos coming out this week, so look forward to those. And hugs and kisses to your babies and your mothers and your grandmothers and your great-grandmothers if you got them. And if you have a great-great-grandmother, I am super envious of you. And go give her a kiss and a hug and spend some time, because that's wild. Anyhow.